I do what you say and it all just becomes worse?
It will. Your very presence in this world will make things worse. At first, both sides will fight harder because the Avatar has returned. Hope does not come without a cost.
Welcome to Avatar Nation, a podcast all about the Netflix live adaptation of Avatar, The Last Airbender. Whether you're a longtime fan, like us, or you're new to the Avatarverse, join us as we dive into each episode and analyze the retelling of TV's greatest adventure. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Pauline.
And I'm Wes. And I gotta say, because she's older, Avatar Kyoshi is the bomb.com.
I love Avatar Kyoshi. I'm so excited to talk about this episode and Kyoshi, and I want to grow up to be like Kyoshi. Well, actually, I don't know about
So do
that.
I.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
What?
To grow up to be like Kyoshi?
Strong and confident
I
and
will
very good looking? Yeah, I think that's fine.
I will say I haven't read the Kyoshi novel yet, and I'm excited to get there at some point when I have a bunch of free time.
Yeah,
never.
That would be nice.
I'll get there eventually, but I'm excited to learn about all things Kyoshi.
Is it on audio?
You mean like audiobooks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that because I listened to the official Avatar Braving the Elements podcast, and they had an episode where the author and I think that was Yang Chen. Or was that Kyoshi? I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's an audiobook of it, but I would prefer to read it myself.
Yeah, well, my drive time. It would be nice.
Alrighty. Well, I think it's safe to say we're both excited to talk about the second episode of Avatar The Last Airbender. But before we get into it, I do want to remind our listeners to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss any new episodes of Avatar Nation.
Yeah, and you might be able to save a baby seal if you like and subscribe. You could save Momo's friends.
Subscribe to our podcast and you can save all the other winged lemurs. I don't know. Is Momo the last winged lemur? Is he?
I think so. He said the skies used to be filled with them.
Yeah, save the winged lemurs by subscribing and rating our podcast. That's so wrong.
No, that's right. It's so right.
Oh, but speaking of reviews, though, we did get one on Apple Podcasts, and so I just wanted us to go ahead and take a moment to read that. So do you want to go ahead and read the review that we got?
We got a review from King Cohen 97 on Apple Podcasts, and they gave us 5 stars, and they say, "You two are awesome. Longtime fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, and I'm excited for the new series. I plan on following along with you and the show. Y'all doing great."
Awesome. Thank you, King Cohen.
We appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
All right, now, Pauline, you ready to dive into this episode?
I am so ready. Okay, so if you were listening to this podcast for the very first time, we start talking about each episode with what we call the episode T in honor of our favorite Uncle Iroh. We'll just talk
beard.
And his glorious beard. We'll start off by talking about just some details of the episode that I find interesting. This episode, of course, is titled Warriors, directed by, of course, Michael Goy. Writing credits go to Joshua Falkov. I probably mispronounced that. I'm going to say Falkov. But he is most well known for being a comic book writer. He has various TV show writing credits, such as Young Justice, Ultimate Spider-Man. Those were the couple that stood out to me the most. But from what I can see, no prior Avatar The Last Airbender connections. So yeah. Do you want to read our episode recap and just remind listeners what happened in this episode?
All right, let's do it.
Warm up.
Episode 2 starts with Zuko, infuriated over losing his notebook about the Avatar's location, and Iroh consoles him with the fact that there are not too many places where the Avatar could hide. Meanwhile, Aang decides to visit Kyoshi Island and hopes to control his powers with guidance from Avatar Kyoshi's shrine. After bidding one last goodbye to Gyatso, he and his friends head to Kyoshi Island, along with their new winged lemur companion, Momo. Zuko and Iroh arrive at a port and meet with Zhao, a Fire Nation commander, to get leads on the Avatar's whereabouts without revealing their true intentions. When informed about Zuko's discovery, Zhao sends his men to do their own investigation. In Kyoshi Island, Aang's group is ambushed by a group of female warriors and are taken to Mayor Yukari. After explaining their reason, Aang and his team are allowed to stay for 48 hours. Meanwhile, attractions spark between Sokka and the mayor's daughter, Suki, and Katara finds a book detailing how Aang can connect with his past lives. Later, Zuko rushes to Kyoshi Island upon learning Zhao's plan to seize the Avatar. Aang communicates with Kyoshi, learning about the power of the Avatar state and what's at stake. Sokka and Suki's moments get cut short when the Fire Nation arrive. Zuko and Iroh guess that Aang's at the shrine, not in the village, and head that way. At the village, the Kyoshi warriors fight back against Zhao's men as a huge battle ensues. At the shrine, Katara spots Zuko heading their way, but is unable to rouse Aang. She confronts Zuko by herself, and as Zuko is about to strike her down, Kyoshi takes control over Aang and rescues Katara. To further demonstrate her power, Kyoshi rushes to the village and fights back Zhao's men, forcing them to retreat. With the threat removed, Aang returns to his body, and he and his friends decide that they need to leave to ensure the safety of the island. The episode concludes with Zuko asking Zhao to keep the Avatar's return a secret, which Zhao betrays immediately. He sends a report to Fire Lord Ozai confirming that the Avatar is back.
Dun, 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 dun. That was really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for reading that for us. Okay, so now that we have our recap, let's get into our cabbage ratings.
My cabbages!
My cabbages! So yes, as a reminder, our cabbage ratings are basically like when IGN or Screen Rant or Rotten Tomatoes comes out with their ratings for each show episode. But because we wanted to make it more Avatar related, we're calling it our cabbage ratings. So Wes and I each give a cabbage rating for each episode. And I will let you start off with your cabbage rating, Wes.
I would like to say, if you want to reach out, tell us your cabbage rating.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Let us know what your cabbage rating is for each episode. We'd love to know if we're on the same wavelength. Because I feel like everybody's pretty much divided, which I don't think that's necessarily
You ready for a curveball? Okay,
wait,
scale
your last episode was, what did you rate it?
5.
Initially a 3, and then upon rewatch, you gave it a 5.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit scared what you were rating.
Okay, so once again, I was kind of disappointed my first watch. I lowered my expectations. I had a good bowel movement. Came back to watch, and I'm giving my cabbage rating is an 8.
An 8?
An 8, yes.
Okay,
I loved this episode. Isn't that weird?
I am very shocked because when we did our first watch, which when we watch it for the first time, we're just watching it for our enjoyment. We're not trying to analyze or write notes or anything like that. But I just kept hearing Wes sighing next to me, chuckling to himself, but not in a good way. So I really thought that this one was going to be lower than the last one. So,
yes.
An 8, okay.
What a twist.
For mine, I almost gave it an 8. I really wanted to give it an 8, but I feel like it's not quite there for me. But I did like it better than the last episode. So I'm going with a 7.5. Can we do
that's
that?
climbing. So what was your rating for the first one?
The first one was a 7, so this one is a 7.5.
So is it a 0.5 better than the last episode?
Yes, half a point better. Because I was really on the fence.
If we're going half points, are you going to go a quarter? 3/8?
No, that's too much for me. That's too much for me.
Okay, so
Wait. The reason why I gave it 7.5 is because I felt like the characters were a little bit better. Some of the dialogue was better. And it left me feeling a little bit more excited to
I agree.
Get to the
All
next episode.
the characters were better in episode 2.
So that's what brought it up for you?
Yes.
Okay.
And the writing, I felt, was better than episode 1.
I agree.
Okay, key moments. What was your key moment?
For our personal key moments, so once again, these are our favorite and least favorite moments that we're identifying for each of us. Again, because we wanted to make it Avatar related. Our favorite moment, we're calling that our Avatar state moment. So basically something about this episode that was so good that it basically sent you into the Avatar state. And our least favorite moment, we're calling the that's rough buddy moment in honor of our boy Zuko. His most famous line. And then also we'll do an honorable mention, again, throwing in the word honor in there for Zuko for something else that's good that we thought was worth mentioning, but didn't quite make it to our favorite moment.
All right, let's hit it. What's your Avatar state moment?
For my Avatar state moment, I put Aang's conversation with Kyoshi. I just love seeing the moments where you really see the emotion, especially on Aang's face. This conversation really set the stakes. I liked how they filmed it and really made you feel like it was this otherworldly, took place on some different plane.
Like it was in the spiritual world.
Exactly. And I just liked what they talked about and that they didn't really hold back on the sting of that conversation. Kyoshi really just giving it to him, and then the tears and fear you could see in Aang's eyes. So I really loved that moment. My that's rough buddy moment is, I'm probably not the only one in this boat, but it was where Suki was staring at Sokka shirtless.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable.
I could tell that you're uncomfortable.
I'm going to go ahead and just say that's rough buddy moment. That's mine, too. Yes.
Yeah, and especially we're also watching with our daughter. She's a preteen now, and so it's kind of like, it just made me itch a little bit. Maybe because I don't know about the actors, but I know the characters they're portraying are supposed to be pretty young. But maybe just because we're now old. So that was my that's rough buddy moment. And then I'll just say honorable mention for me was the Fire Lord Ozai reveal, just because that was another thing that made me excited to get to the next episode, which we have not done yet because, again, we are watching this one episode at a time. What about you? You already mentioned your that's rough buddy moment. Yeah. What was your Avatar state moment?
My Avatar state moment was Kyoshi's Avatar state moment, where she went into the Avatar statement. It was, and I'm sorry to say this, cover your ears, it was badass.
I think at this point, if this is your first episode of ours that you're listening to, we try to keep it pretty family friendly, but Wes and I are not necessarily squeaky clean, but we are doing our best.
But it was not?
It was very badass, for sure. And you took that quite literally. Your Avatar state moment was the Avatar state moment.
Yes, it was. It blew me out of the water. Huh? But no, I loved it. I can't wait to see Aang's coming together with everything, his Avatar moments. But my honorable mention would have to be Momo helping out Sokka.
What do you mean?
He was throwing some dimes down on the enemy when they were fighting.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, Momo, get it.
I forgot about that. That was amazing. And I will say for your Avatar state moment, I almost picked that one, but I thought, maybe that's a little bit too on the nose. But you're right. That was epic and was probably one of the main highlights, if not the main highlight of the episode. So, alrighty, let's dive much deeper into this episode. This is where we'll do our whole episode analysis. And I will say, initially, I thought when we first watched this episode, I thought maybe there wasn't going to be a whole lot to dive into. But then upon rewatching it, I was like, this is a gold mine. I really got analytical with this, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Oh, gosh.
And fair warning, I am going to nerd out about this episode because there was just so much to really dig into there, you know?
So I might need to stop you every once in a while.
Yes, if I'm nerding out a little bit too much, you need to pull me back a little bit and be like, okay.
All right, deal.
Let's simmer down. Alrighty, for this episode, I was trying to think about how I wanted to tackle it because I didn't necessarily want to just drill down our list of plot, characters, music, cinematography, all those different elements. So many puns in this episode, but all those different elements that we wanted to talk about. How I wanted to tackle analyzing this episode is in framing it within two main things, and that's the theme of the episode and then also the relationships in this episode. Mainly because with relationships, I feel like that's one of the things in the original series that made it so great. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, but any type of relationships.
That's good because they missed a lot of that in the first episode.
Yes,
building
exactly.
The characters in their relationships.
Right, because if there aren't good character connections there, then it just feels very hollow. But we'll get to that. First, I want to back up and talk about the theme of this episode. So, the theme, the central question of this episode, and it came to me when rewatching it a second time, what is the cost of hope? And in this case, hope meaning Aang. Aang is the symbolic hope of course, the whole series, but especially in this episode. To the world, Aang equals hope of saving the world. So Avatar Kyoshi, when they're having their really intense heart-to-heart talk, she tells Aang, hope does not come without a cost. And that's why I think that's what the theme is of this whole episode, because this theme of hope and what it costs and what it brings is sprinkled all throughout the episode. Like I said, to the world, Aang equals the hope of saving the world. The cost of that hope is peace and calm. Because Avatar Kyoshi told Aang that just your very presence right now is going to essentially bring war and violence.
You took my quote.
What do you mean?
It's okay.
Oh, okay.
So she says, your very presence in this world will make things worse.
Yes, so that's your
one of my
memorable
quotes.
quote. Gotcha. You said you had a lot of quotes to mention, so we'll definitely get there. But I think that's a good one. I'm not surprised that it's one of your memorable quotes because I think it's a very important one in this episode. But yeah, so hope of saving the world also brings about war and violence. And then to Zuko, Aang is hope to him because he's the hope of returning home. And this is, okay, spoiler alert, my favorite quote that I actually put was when Uncle Iroh says, sometimes hope can be a cruel thing.
How dare you? Why are you doing this to me?
You're giving me this
Okay.
look. Also, I
wrote that down.
Can I just say I love you because I gave you this whole Google Doc of the notes template of things to look out for each episode, and I sent that to you so that it's on your phone, but you have a little piece of paper next to you and you're
old school, bro.
Very old school. I'm respect.
Yeah.
So
thanks. Paper and pen.
Anyways, so going back to this, that stood out to me because it was returning back to that theme of hope. So then I had to think, what's the cost of hope to Zuko? What do you think?
Well, as he says, now that he knows that the Avatar's there and he knows that he can reach his goals, now he's terrified, right? He's scared.
Exactly.
That he might not be able to regain his honor. He doesn't have that strength.
Right, and succeed in his goal. So ding ding ding, you got the question right. The cost, it costs him his peace of mind, and it brings self-doubt and fear of failure. So then moving on to Suki, which initially I was only thinking of Suki, but this is also true for Katara. Aang is hope for change. There's a line that Katara says to Sokka at the very beginning of the episode. She said, ever since he came into our lives, things have changed for me. But then Yukari, Suki's mom, says to Suki later on in the episode that Aang may be entertaining, but he's dangerous and he's still a threat. To Suki and Katara, Aang is hope of bringing about change in their lives because they've been so used to living the same life and not being able to experience things outside of their little villages.
Right, but also Sokka brought hope and change to Suki.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Yeah, because he's traveling the world and she's been stuck in this town. And now she sees what she's missing out on.
Yeah, and I think she says that to him.
Which is love.
Do you think it's love yet?
No, I think
Not
it's
yet.
like, but she sure thinks he's got a rockin' body.
Well, okay, think about it. It's like we'll talk about Suki and Sokka when we get there. But yeah, you're right. Both Sokka and Aang have brought about this hope for change. But like Suki's mom says, it means sacrificing safety. It's a risk. It brings about danger and harm to the village. Actually, for both. So in a lot of ways, Suki and Katara have a parallel storyline at the moment because they both were living quiet lives in their villages and knowing nothing else. And then Aang comes about and it literally brings the Fire Nation to their doorsteps. Like what Avatar Kyoshi said, your very presence is a threat to the world. It's just interesting that he is hope, but he's also
war.
Yeah, which must not come easy to Aang.
Okay, let's look at the relationships.
Yes, so I wanted to start out with Zuko and Iroh and take a look at what their relationship is starting to look like. Now we're really getting to see more of Zuko and Iroh interacting with each other. So tell me, what do you think so far of how their relationship is being portrayed? Because I know that's one thing you said you were looking forward to is how Zuko and Iroh are together.
Well, like we said, I think Iroh is keeping our boy Zuko grounded. Mm-hmm. And to let him know, hey, hope is a cruel thing. That's pretty deep for a kid his age.
Especially in the opening scene of the whole episode, their interaction really shows the difference in their temperaments because right out of the gates, Zuko is throwing things around. He's basically throwing a royal temper tantrum.
Diva.
He is a dramatic kid.
Yeah.
Iroh is there to keep a cool head and bring him down a little bit. They keep each other balanced. And so I'm glad that we're getting to see a little bit of that, especially in that opening scene. And I really love how Dallas Liu is portraying Zuko. Dallas Liu being the actor.
Yeah,
I know
he's
in the
doing
last
a fantastic
episode.
job.
Yes, you said that you already loved from the get-go how he's doing. And I think for me, it really showed in this episode that almost even more so in the live action version versus the cartoon, that we are seeing a little bit more of that desperation just through his face acting.
And then you got Iroh saying, hey, it's been 3 years. You can wait a little bit longer.
That had to sting a little bit.
Yeah.
I felt really bad for Zuko. He's just a teenager.
Yeah, but I like how he was willing to take out Katara. He was going to strike her down.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that until rewatching it, that it's like, wow, you were getting ready to kill
he was
an innocent person. But I think that's all part of his desperation. And I really got a good feel of that desperation in this episode. And every interaction that Zuko had with somebody, whether it be Iroh or Zhao or whoever, I'm excited to see how that desperation is going to play out and what kind of choices that's going to force Zuko to make down the line. So yeah, you have anything else about Zuko and Iroh?
No, I think you nailed it. I like your perspective on the relationship so far. Let's move on to Katara and Sokka.
Okay, so what are your thoughts so far with that brother-sister dynamic?
There wasn't much difference with their dynamic in this episode. Mm-hmm. I do like how she's laughing at him because he's the protector of the...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and they're in the background, they're just laughing at him like, what were you saying, Katara, about how helping the Avatar can help our
she was
tribe?
Pretty much just letting him sink.
But yeah.
It's very brother-sister-like, where, I mean, respect that she didn't burst his bubble in front of Suki, but yeah, just her and Aang's reactions in the background.
I mean, what did you think of
I think
dynamic?
Besides that, the only other time that I feel like they really interacted was at the beginning of the episode when they were still at the Southern Air Temple, and Sokka still being that somewhat overprotective brother who his mind is still on his duty to their tribe, whereas Katara is already thinking about where this adventure can take them, how this situation can benefit her as somebody who's learning to waterbend still. But yeah, you can tell that Sokka cares about his sister, but he's going to be still that sarcastic, tough guy, or that's how he perceives himself. But other than that, I didn't really see a whole lot with Katara and Sokka. Basically, your typical optimist versus pessimist. All right, let's get to this one. This is a big one. Sokka and Suki.
Sizzle.
Yes. First of all, I'm just going to say, in this episode, Suki is thirsty. Which, is a little bit different from the cartoon, but yeah, Suki was pretty thirsty in this episode.
Yeah, I think if I was her aunt, was that her aunt?
Her mom.
That's her
mom,
mother?
yes.
I think if I was her mother, I'd be like, hey, let's pump the brakes here.
She tried, kind of.
But yeah, that was... What I didn't understand is, their first moments where he was practicing with his... Boomerang. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, is she trying to flirt with him? And they're going to fight, right?
I was worried what you were about to say there.
He's like, right now?
Fight. They're about to fight.
And then she takes him down, right? Mm-hmm. And then they just awkward silence and he walks away.
How I see that is, one, it's two very socially awkward teenagers, because you have to remember they haven't really experienced much of the world. And Suki, she's just being her weird, awkward self. And Sokka had even made the joke like, oh, you need to have a bell on you. And it's like that girl in high school. She's cute, but she's a little bit weird and follows you around.
And she took his man card, didn't she?
That's exactly what this scene was, in my opinion. Because at that point, before they started fighting, Sokka still saw him as being on the same level as Suki. Maybe not even seeing Suki as being on the same level, but he was curious because he's never met other warriors before.
So she knocked him off his pedestal.
Exactly. Okay. And this is where I wish, we'll talk about this more later, but this is where I wish Sokka's sexism was a little bit more obvious, because maybe not even sexism, but he must have judged her in some way to not see her as being on the same level as him. Or maybe it wasn't him judging her, but Sokka had overestimated his own abilities. But then when he started practicing with Suki and he got taken down immediately, I think really hurt his ego a lot. And he wasn't expecting that. So he took that personally, and that's why he just walked away like that. So that's how I saw it. But do you find that their budding romance in this episode, do you find it believable? Do you think it was portrayed well?
I love their little montage of her teaching him. And,
really?
Yeah, I thought they put it together really well. They didn't have to do a bunch to make it. They did a good job with the montage.
They got the point.
I liked it.
Yeah, I did like that scene. I had a couple gripes with it, but nothing too major. For me, it was a little bit heavy-handed. Because in the cartoon, things have to be, because the cartoon was initially for kids, and sometimes you can't be too subtle with things or else it's just going to go over kids' heads. But I kind of wish the show would be a little bit more subtle with things, because a lot of us watching this are millennials, and so we're smart enough to pick up on some of these things.
There's a lot of touching.
Yeah, and also just the obvious, like, slow motion Sokka looking back at her, and she looks at him. I did like the way she pushed his face forward, but it was just a little bit, like, too obvious. We get it. We get that there's something there, and so I wish that they dialed it down just a little bit, not because I don't appreciate the stuff. We've obviously seen so much worse on TV, and it doesn't bother me, but I think since this is still a very beginning phase of their feelings for each other, just something a little bit more subtle.
I liked what they did. I mean, neither of them has had a lot of interactions with the other sex. So
true, yeah.
They're what, 12, 13?
No, they're older than that.
14?
I think Sokka's maybe 16.
I'm glad you corrected. Can you take that out? So I think
No,
I think they're what, 15, 16. Their hormones are firing on all cylinders.
Okay.
So
yeah,
they want to touch each other.
I get that. It does really remind me of, like, high school, where you have, especially in small town schools like ours, and then you have, like, the new guy that's from,
this is making me uncomfortable.
Out of state or whatever, and it's such a trope though in, like, movies and stuff, and then everybody's like, oh, who's this new person? It doesn't have to be a guy, but whatever, and everybody's intrigued, and that person's almost like a mini celebrity for, like, a week.
Okay, let's move on, because we can talk about this for a while, but how about Suki and Yukari?
Yes, so for Suki and Yukari, which Yukari is her mom once again, well, first let me talk about Suki, because this is the first time we were being introduced to Suki, and I will say that she is definitely my favorite character in this episode. Maybe my favorite character so far when it comes to the live action series. I don't know, her acting was great. She was a joy to watch, and I really loved how she was portrayed. What do you think about Suki so far?
I like that she had a lot of the episode where she wasn't in her makeup, when she took off the makeup for the first time. I don't think they put it back on her.
Nope. And I know they did that on purpose, because then it made her stand out during the battle, because she's surrounded by other Kyoshi warriors wearing the same makeup, so that was a smart way of making her stand out. But yeah, I don't know, and she's gorgeous. Even Zoe said, oh, she's so pretty.
Yeah,
so
she's very pretty.
I think we all got a girl crush on Suki.
I don't. Just going to say this, I do not.
But you have to appreciate, she's a gorgeous girl.
She's very pretty. And I also noticed that we had a brand new character, which is Yukari.
Yes, because she was not in the cartoon. She basically is replacing, I believe his name was Oyaji, Mayor Oyaji in the cartoon. But they made this character into Suki's mom. So what did you think of that?
I loved her. I liked how blunt she was. And also, I like how strong she was.
Yeah, I was
Where'd
shocked.
that come from?
And it was obvious that they wanted her to seem like this small, quiet lady, still strong-headed, and you could tell that she was a strong-willed character, but they didn't show any signs of, that she had that in her. She yeeted that guy.
Yeah, is she a bender? Because I didn't see her bend anything, but man, she threw that dude like he was a pebble.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. And I liked seeing that typical mother-daughter relationship. Yukari being this protective. I don't even know if overprotective is the right word, because I can see where she's coming from. She wants to protect not only her daughter, but her village. She's the mayor.
She understands that her daughter has a very kind heart, and
Yes.
that this world will tear her apart.
Yeah, and that her daughter is slightly naive. No fault of her own, because she's just been on this island and hasn't experienced other things. Just how the nations...
I don't think she was naive. I mean,
Who's Suki?
Yeah, she's a Kyoshi warrior. She's
Yeah.
the leader of the Kyoshi warriors. And at her age, to understand that she's representing Kyoshi and her lifestyle, or Kyoshi, you know what I mean?
The Kyoshi lifestyle.
Yeah, and you have to uphold that. That's a lot for a teenager.
That is true.
And she understands that. I don't think naive's the right word.
I guess I should say naive
They
only
just said
when
naive's not the right word.
When I say naive, I mean just her lack of experience of the outside world. So Yukari was telling her that you don't know what it's like to live in constant fear of the Fire Nation and of all this violence and war, because they have stayed pretty low-key and not gotten into any conflicts. So naive in that way, as far as Suki doesn't know what that is like. Alrighty, so then let's move on to Aang and Katara. What do you think of their friendship so far?
I think Aang is outshining her as far as friendship-wise, but
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Okay, where she's practicing the bending in the river, and she seems like, oh, well, it's not very much. And he's like, well, it's better than you were yesterday. And then coming together with her telling him, you can't, just because you're ignoring your responsibilities doesn't mean your responsibilities go away. And that's a good friend. I mean, she's being honest with him. Mm-hmm. What do you think about Aang and Katara and their dynamic?
They didn't show a whole lot in this episode, because I know the episode wasn't too focused on them. But I think the scene where they're by the river started to showcase that playfulness and reminder that these two are just kids. Even though they are benders and they have a lot of responsibilities, they are just kids. So it was nice to see them playing and splashing around in the water. And then I can't remember if that was before or after they had that somewhat serious conversation.
It was right after.
So yeah, it was nice to see that even...
She threw a water ball at him. And she's, at least I could use you as target practice.
Yeah, which is nice, because we need that levity sometimes, because the themes of the show, even in the cartoon, they're pretty heavy. So without that levity, one, it would just make everything super depressing. And two, it makes it hard to believe that these are actually kids. They showed more of that whenever Aang was running to play with those kids. I think it was the same in the last episode, where Aang ran to go play with the water tribe kids, and in this one he ran to play with the kids in the Kyoshi Island village.
Yeah, and we got to see him ride his air ball and then, into the statue.
I did like that. That was like a little Easter egg for us original fans, because that was in the intro of the original cartoon. So to see that being called back to the air scooter ball.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun. So yeah, like I said, I want to see more of Aang and Katara and just see their friendship continue to grow.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Aang and Kyoshi. We talked about their conversation a little bit, but with how important that conversation was, I do want to talk about what their relationship is like. So it's almost like a relationship to himself, really, because the previous avatars are his past selves. But we already mentioned that we loved seeing Kyoshi. Another reason I love this conversation, though, is because it was such a mom moment for Kyoshi. Do you know what I'm talking about? So whenever there was like a moment where she was getting fed up with Aang and she snapped at him a little bit, but
I got you. Like where she's like, hey, this is what happens. Our people have already been hurt and you're going to hurt more people.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
The look that she had on her face, she snapped at him, and then she had that moment that a lot of us moms have where it's like, you take one look at the kid that you're talking to, remember that you're talking to a kid, have to take a moment and just go, and then she like went down to his level to speak to him in a slightly calmer manner, and I feel like that's something a lot of us moms have just had to do. So it was such like a mom moment right there. But my question to you is, do you think Kyoshi was a little too harsh on Aang, or? No,
I think it was exactly what Aang needed to hear. I mean, from someone that was the Avatar, is the Avatar. I don't know how you want to look at it, but she's telling him his responsibilities, and be damned if it's not about him. It's about the safety of the world, right?
Yeah, very true.
So, and by the way, she reminds me of Iron Man.
What do you mean?
You know, like, I didn't realize how, like, when she comes and lands, you know, she takes out Zuko. Then she jumps and lands in front of all Zhao's men.
Yeah.
Blows them back. I didn't realize how big she is. They made her huge.
She's,
humongous.
In the cartoon, and then I'm guessing obviously in the Kyoshi novels as well, I think she's at least 7 feet tall. And then they mentioned in the cartoon that she has really big feet too. So she's a beast.
I love her.
We all love Kyoshi. Okay, now I want to talk about Zuko and Zhao. So Zhao, this was the first time that he was introduced to us, correct?
Correct.
In this episode. Fun fact, same actor that played the villain in Rush Hour.
Yeah.
I knew he looked familiar. He's
a lot more outspoken in this than he was.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, what did we think about Zhao being added to this episode?
Zhao. I have notes on Zhao.
Yes, because, in the cartoon, he showed up earlier before the Kyoshi Island episode. So this is a little bit different that he is part of this episode and actually goes to Kyoshi Island. Do you think the addition of Zhao to this part of the plot was beneficial, or do you wish that they would have gone a different direction with it?
I, again, liked what they did with Zhao. As I was watching it, I wrote down just some things, and when Zhao came in, I wrote down, I felt refreshed for some reason. We can go over these if you want. I felt refreshed. I felt he was the most rooted character so far. Okay. I don't know why I felt that way. And that he kind of cut through the bullshit. That's what I wrote down.
Why do you think that is?
He was such a great actor so far. I don't know if it was his delivery. It's got to be his delivery, right? I mean, he seemed, you know how everyone's overacting, over the top, kind of? His seemed more
effortless,
down to earth, rooted in reality. Not like he seemed like he was more like you're watching a movie and you're not watching a cartoon that was...
Are you saying because it seems like it's clear that everybody else is having to adapt a cartoon character, whereas with Zhao's portrayal, you don't get that feeling at all.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
He's not trying to emulate a cartoon character. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. One thing I do like about Zhao is in the cartoon, he was portrayed as the obvious baddie. Actually, he was voiced by who is the bad guy in The Patriot, and he's like the bad guy in a lot of things.
Well, if you're going to do this, you need notes.
I know. Well, I just now thought of it, like that he was the voice actor. The Patriot, he was Captain Hook in that one iteration of Peter Pan. Long black hair. He is like poster child villain. Hold on. I'm Googling it right now.
Darn. Well, while you're doing that, I paused the show and asked you to come down for a part where Zuko was mad at Zhao for wanting, to join forces, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had that question of, is he saying that Zuko was going to lead them? Like he'll follow his lead? Because he said, or remember what he said
something like, we can work together and give you more resources, of course, with Your Highness as the lead.
Yeah. Was he saying Zuko is Your Highness, or is he saying Fire Lord Ozai?
I'm not sure, because I didn't catch that until you brought it to my attention.
Then he immediately wrote to the Fire Lord.
Yeah, and Zuko got mad.
So was he betraying Zuko there, or was...
Well, he was obviously betraying Zuko. I think you're right that when he said Your Highness, he was referring to the Fire Lord helming this effort. And I think you're right. That is why Zuko reacted so aggressively, because he doesn't want the Fire Lord to be the one to capture the Avatar. Even though he's doing it for his father, it removes his chance of having his honor restored. He needs to be the one to capture the Avatar. So I think you're right. I don't know if a prince would be addressed as Your Highness. I might be wrong. I'm not 100%
Well, I mean, to
sure,
the listeners, do you think Zhao was speaking to Zuko, calling him Your Highness, or was he referencing, the Fire Lord?
Yes.
Is that what he meant? Answer our question.
Answer, please.
Answer.
Okay. So
Save a baby seal.
Jason Isaacs, this guy.
Okay.
He's the one that voiced Zhao in the cartoon. So with his villainous voice and then, of course, how the artwork was, you could tell that he represented a bad guy. Whereas with this iteration of Zhao, his voice is a little more gentle. He's a little bit more cool-headed, and he looks a little bit kinder.
He sounds more academic?
Yeah, and...
put together?
And I think that's a smart move. Because right now, you're not sure how to feel about Zhao.
Yeah.
Obviously,
like
by the end of the episode, you're like, oh, Zhao's not that great of a guy because he does go behind Zuko's back after he promised that he would not let anybody know that the Avatar has returned.
Zuko is banned. So, I mean, he's really not going behind his back.
He still broke a promise, and that's not good.
If what he was saying was Zuko can take the lead.
No, Zuko told him, promise you won't tell anybody about the Avatar.
Oh,
he says,
okay.
I promise,
okay.
or like, you have my word. He goes against his word, and that's when you know Zhao is not very nice. So
I feel like he's doing his duty.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's what he thinks too.
I'm rooting for you.
But yeah, I do like the introduction of Zhao in this episode because it raises the stakes. He is a threat to Zuko. It ups that sense of urgency for Zuko that now he really needs to find the Avatar because the race is on, or else he's not going to be able to go home. At the end of the episode, you could tell that Zuko is becoming more and more desperate. He was already desperate at the beginning of the episode, but this was really like...
Yeah, that was pretty desperate. Don't tell anyone!
Yeah, and you know that Uncle Iroh was just like, please shut up. Don't say anything. But Zuko's going to be Zuko. Okay, and then last one, bonus character, not really anything about relationships, but we have to mention that we did get the Fire Lord reveal. So we do finally see Zaddy Lord Ozai.
Don't say that.
I can't help it. He is the Zaddy Lord. Daddy Day Kim.
I hate him just because you have a crush on him.
If you're listening to this, Daniel Day Kim, my husband hates you.
I don't hate you.
What do you think about them introducing Ozai this early? Which we knew what was going to happen, that they weren't going to wait until future seasons to show who the Fire Lord is. But did you like how they ended this episode with Ozai?
I thought it was necessary, and it worked out. That's all I have to say about that.
I think without this, it would have been like, okay, yeah, second episode done. It would have been a nice, neat little bow, but I love how they keep throwing these things at the end that seeing the Fire Lord, it's like, ooh, I want to see what's going to come next.
Yeah, he's got the information.
If I was a first-time watcher, I want to see, what does this mean for Zuko, you know?
No, you want to see him with his shirt off.
That too. That too. Alrighty, so now that we've talked about the theme and character relationships, just real quick, I do want to go over just what we thought about the execution of the plot. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do think that they executed the plot well.
I think they hit everything they needed to hit, and which is why the rating I gave was so high. I really enjoyed it. I don't feel like there's any gaps that they missed. I feel like they filled in all the gaps.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
They're starting to bring everyone together. I like that towards the end, they finally did what I wanted them to do, which was Zuko telling Aang, "You're not alone. You got us."
Zuko telling Aang?
Or, sorry, Sokka. Wow. Yeah, Sokka telling Aang, "You're not alone. You got us." And then, you know, the flying furball, and then
yes,
Momo lands on his head.
Because that's what you missed from the last episode. Was that reassurance and the bonding and the beginnings of that formed family.
Netflix is starting to reel me in.
Yes, I will say that I agree with everything they had to fit into this episode and the stuff that they've added, the changes that they've done. I think they did a good job with this episode. What was I going to say?
Do 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 do.
There's something off of what you were saying. I am so mad now. Okay.
We'll come back.
Okay. So I agree with what you have to say. I'm going to think of it later on.
Yay!
So speaking of some changes, I did want to just quickly mention a couple differences from the cartoon.
I like that you call it the OG.
It's just faster to type. OG, original.
Okay.
It's the original gang. The original gang. Gang, G-Ang.
Deep sigh.
Okay, so the first obvious one is Sokka's sexism, but we're actually going to wait to discuss that until we get to the question of the week, because our question of the week did have to do with Sokka and his character in this episode. Waterbending scroll. At the beginning of the episode, we see that Katara actually has the waterbending scroll already, and that it is Gran that gave it to her.
I like how they put that in there.
Do you remember how they got it in the cartoon?
Yeah, or she stole it.
Yes, from pirates.
Yeah, and that's where you get the 2 copper pieces.
The 2 copper pieces. Yes, and that portion of the cartoon felt a little bit side questy. Though I still loved that episode. It was still a good episode, but I am not surprised that they cut out that whole pirate thing altogether. I was wondering how or if they were going to introduce the waterbending scroll at all in this adaptation and the way that they did it. Like you said, I think it was a good idea.
They nailed it.
In this episode, we also saw Katara have a flashback of her mom, which I'm not sure was in the cartoon. I know she has flashbacks about her mom throughout the cartoon, but I don't know if it was necessarily in this episode on Kyoshi Island. But I do like how they did that when Zuko was about to basically kill her. And
I think I missed it.
Her flashback?
Did I miss her flashback?
Oh, you missed her flashback? Yes. Basically, PTSD flashback. Right before Kyoshi comes down and saves her, she's on the ground and he's about to take Katara out. And she has a really quick flashback, like it's a blink and you miss it, where they show, I guess I should say this might be, I'm now realizing maybe this is or isn't spoilery because I don't think they mentioned that it's her mom in the live adaptation, but anyways, they show a flashback of a woman in the water tribe getting firebended, and you see a young Katara hiding under, like in the corner, and she screams, and that's the flashback. It's really quick, but I mean, they showed somebody.
So yeah, you just spoiled it.
So she has a flashback to a woman
Very
being attacked by a firebender, and so I think it really works in this scenario because she is about to be attacked by Zuko.
Right, but why did they put that in there? Just because she's getting attacked?
Yeah, and that's what it reminds her of. She was getting, but this is where she's actually in a corner.
When is she going to get angry? I thought she was going to be like, I've had enough of this. She's building up her power. And then you see how strong Katara is. I
think it's too soon to see how strong Katara is, but I do wish that there was a little bit more from Katara. I have a feeling this is going to be something I'm going to say throughout this season. Is I want more from Katara. I think maybe eventually we'll get there, but yeah, same as the last episode, she was in the background for me. Another change. We mentioned that Suki took off her makeup, and we explained why that was, but also Sokka did not wear the Kyoshi uniform.
I think he had it on at one point when they were going through their montage.
I don't think so. Maybe I'll have to rewatch it. But
and when they were fighting,
he was not
Zhao's
in the Kyoshi garb at all. So in the cartoon,
you're gonna have to rewatch it.
In the cartoon, part of the training with Suki was that he had
it on.
He had to dress up like a Kyoshi warrior, just like them, because he was so hung up about not seeing girls as these strong fighters, and then he had to put on the Kyoshi garb. And
if we find out that he was wearing it, are you going to let the listeners know that I was right?
Yes.
Are you going to say it?
Yes. I do know for a fact, I am very confident that he wasn't wearing it for the battle, which means he wasn't wearing it for the training because they attacked right after, like their training moments got interrupted because of Fire Nation came. He did wear, people to chime in. I will say, he wore the outer armor. I don't know what you call that, but he didn't wear any of the green.
Oh, well, I thought we were talking about he wore...
He wore the outer armor, but he didn't wear any of the identifying Kyoshi.
Okay.
That's half right. No, he wasn't wearing the green. It was.
You want him to wear a wig too?
No. He didn't wear a wig in the cartoon.
All right.
But he wasn't wearing the Kyoshi makeup. So I do wish that they had put that in there because that would have been really fun to see. But I see how it's not super important to the plot. So what do you think?
I think you're being ticky-tacky. He was wearing the uniform.
Part of the uniform.
Okay, well, now you're admitting it, so if you would like to say it for everyone to hear.
Moving on. Let's see. We already talked about Commander Zhao being on Kyoshi Island, how that's new, so we'll skip over that. Going back to Avatar Kyoshi, do you like that they had her appear in this episode earlier on?
I do. I think I like how much she was in it, and like they needed to, because Aang needed to know the repercussions of him not being around, and he needs to get his his stuff together.
Yeah, and who better to tell him than Kyoshi on
Mommy
Kyoshi.
Kyoshi.
Mommy Kyoshi. We have Zaddy Lord Ozai and Mommy Kyoshi.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Because we got Avatar Kyoshi, it means that we did not get the Unagi from the cartoon, the big sea monster thing that Aang had to ride, and he used the Unagi to put out the fires, like the Unagi's water
instead
squirting.
Mommy Kyoshi took care of it.
Kyoshi wasn't in the cartoon though.
I'm just saying in the live adaptation.
Yes, but some people are not too happy that there was no Unagi in this show. Okay. Are you upset?
I am not upset. Just like there was no penguin sledding. I mean,
I think a lot of people were probably upset about that too, because that was iconic. It's okay. It's okay at Netflix. We'll breathe. And then we already talked about Fire Lord Ozai appearing in this episode.
Was that a good trade-off though?
Yeah. I think so.
It's a good trade-off.
That was a very good trade-off. I would agree. I liked how they did it. I'm not upset about their choices here. So, let's see. Really quick about like cinematography and editing and stuff, because I do like to geek out over this as well. I loved the lighting and just overall tone that they had on Kyoshi Island. It really felt like I was in the village. It's exactly how I pictured it in my head. Translating that from cartoon to live action, especially in the scene that you mentioned where Sokka and Suki were training. Just that moody lighting, nothing overly fancy, but the tone that it just set I thought was beautiful. The shadows in that, the color grading when they were training, it was really good. And then the color of Aang and Kyoshi's conversation, I guess there are some people that didn't like that. They thought it was a little bit weird that there was a switch in just like the camera and like the lens. And
he's in the spiritual world. I mean, they're giving you a difference. That way you know, hey, he ain't based
isn't in Kansas anymore.
Right now. Oh, yeah. I like that. But no, I didn't see a problem with it. I liked it. I felt like I didn't like it the first time. Mm-hmm. But the second time, I liked it.
Yeah, I think I've always wondered what that would look like, like in our world going into
another dimension.
Yeah, like spirit world, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's what it would feel. That's how I imagine it. And I thought that they portrayed that really well. So let's see, scenes during the Fire Nation attack. Oh, yes. So I loved that portion of this episode where the Fire Nation came and just how everything was edited together. Because, you know, you had different settings and you were with different characters. You had Zuko and Katara. They had their thing. And then things were obviously going on in the village, and how everything was edited together was great. Because I felt like, one, this was the culmination of the plot. But all of this together gave a taste of what the cost of hope is and bringing it back to that theme. So, for example, Kyoshi showed Aang a vision of the violence reaching the Northern Water Tribe and what was going to happen to them if Aang didn't act. Like I said, showing that the cost of his very presence is peace and calm. So what's going to happen to the Northern Water Tribe? And then with Zuko, like I said, Aang was his hope of returning home. So during this part of the episode, he saw his chance of capturing the Avatar slip away because of what Zhao was doing, that Zhao had already arrived there before him, and then Avatar Kyoshi coming and basically kicking his ass. So he got to see his hope slip away. And then Yukari and the Kyoshi warriors saw their village being destroyed. So all those scenes edited together brought back the theme of hope and what the cost of that hope is. So I like how they did that.
What did Yukari say towards the end? Because they were leaving, and she said, "Nothing here can't be fixed," or
something like that. Like nothing that can't be fixed. Yeah. I will say Yukari went from "you guys need to leave" and the Avatar is a threat to, "Oh, we love you, Avatar," like super quick.
Well, now they're in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I know that you can't fit a whole lot into...
She's on the Avatar side.
Yes, it just happened really quick. I wish there was a better transition of her stance. But I mean, it was a very small thing, so I'm not going to get too hung up on it. So yeah. And then similarities to the cartoon. We already mentioned the air scooter ball. That was fun to see. I feel like another like little Easter egg was the melons.
Explain, please.
So when Sokka and Suki were first...
Yeah, Sokka was practicing with his boomerang.
Yeah, okay. And then Suki snuck up behind him. But by the way, Suki made me jump when she approached because I didn't, I wasn't expecting that. And so that's why he's like, you need to have a bell. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, so he was practicing with melons. And
what's the Easter egg there?
Old fans know that, like cabbages, melons, it's another Easter egg. Melon Lord.
Okay.
I just had to throw that in there. So did you notice any other Easter eggs or similarities that they called back to that was worth mentioning?
Yes, but I don't know if this is the right spot. But yes, I saw a similarity when they're all bowing down to Aang at the end on Kyoshi Island. Sokka and Katara did not bow, which I think in the cartoon they bowed. But I think they should have bowed in this one. But it also, I felt like Sokka then realized how important Aang is.
Yeah,
but
that was a similarity.
But yeah, it was a similarity as they all bowed down to Aang. Yeah, they all bowed down to Aang.
In the cartoon they did. Oh, okay.
But I think even Sokka and Katara bowed down to Aang.
Oh, I see.
But
didn't in this one.
But I think in this one, I think they had to. It looked like maybe that's where Sokka realized, okay, this kid's important. Like,
yeah,
I got to stick it out with him. I got to keep him safe.
That was definitely a powerful moment, seeing all of them bow down like that together. Last thing I just want to mention with this analysis is the music, because I want to share things that kind of stood out to me. Obviously, we still have the Fire Nation theme that's loud and proud, and we hear that throughout. But I do love the theme that they have going on for the Kyoshi warriors and just the island in general. I don't think this was music that was in the cartoon, but it really just set a good vibe for Kyoshi Island, and it was cool.
That's something I love about you, is that you really pay attention to the ambiance of the background noises / music, and I'm just about the action. But
yeah,
I respect that you pay attention to the music. And I just like how it makes me feel. Should I be feeling excited right here? Then the music tells me. But
yes.
you listen to the music. I just feel the music. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think that's the purpose of the music, is it's to manipulate you and your feelings, really. And so
I know, but I'm saying you actually listen to the music. I'm just
like more in tune.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if it's not something that necessarily stands out to you.
That's what I like about
But
you.
it still affects you, though.
I can't recall what the music was when they were on Kyoshi Island.
Right, because you're paying attention to what's going on. I think that's why, so a little side note here, you are really good with remembering song lyrics. And I am not. I suck at picking up song lyrics. I have to Google lyrics to be able to understand it because I will mishear lyrics all the time. What I pick up more on is like the instrumentals, like the percussion, just the background instrumentals. And I think that's why I don't pick up on lyrics very well and can't remember it, because I am more likely to remember the harmonies and everything else going on behind the lyrics. And maybe this is like a similar thing here. Like you're more likely to remember maybe what they're saying, the dialogue, that because when I am putting together my notes for this, I have to go back and watch scene by scene.
Okay, babe, let's stop nerding out about ourselves.
But do you know what I'm saying,
yes.
though? I think I'm now learning this about us right now in real time. That's why you remember lyrics so well. I remember more of like the background stuff.
I agree. Moving on. All
right. So before we move on to our favorite bending moment, is there anything else that you want to mention in this analysis?
No, I think I like what we went over.
Okay, then. So let's get into our favorite bending moment. Do you want to do yours first?
Okay, let's get into our favorite bending moments. Would you like to go first?
I just said...
That's me saying I don't want to go first.
Oh, you don't want to go first?
Bending moments, Pauline. Would you like to go first?
Fine, I will go first. So this one is really hard for me because at first I just wanted to say all of Kyoshi's Avatar State.
You're taking mine.
Moments, but I felt like that was cheating. So I wanted to be a little bit more specific. I really enjoyed specifically Kyoshi waterbending because, one, we haven't really seen a whole lot of offensive waterbending just yet. We've seen Katara do a few moves here and there, but nothing really too aggressive. So to be able to see what something as gentle as water can really do in a fight offensively was pretty cool. She used waterbending to grab the Fire Nation warriors and throw them around and whatnot. So I felt like that was a good first taste of how fierce waterbending can be.
It was awesome to see what the power of 1,000 avatars could do.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite moment as well, was her bending and bringing all the elements together. I was super excited.
I know. Kyoshi, you're my idol. I want to be like you when
Mama
I grow up.
Kyoshi.
Mama Kyoshi. She is mothering. Mother is mothering. So, all right. Well, that was pretty easy.
Okay, so what about our animal watch? You want to do it? You do it.
Okay, so I don't think I was as good about looking up for animals in this episode. Momo was the obvious one. I didn't really catch anything else. Did you?
No, it wasn't even a lot of Appa in this episode.
Momo had more of the action in this episode, and I think rightly so, because this was his introduction to the series. I love Momo. Fun fact, I think a lot of people know this already, but Momo is Japanese for peach. And
I did not know that.
And yeah,
I thought he tastes like chicken.
Okay, Sokka. But he was sitting in a peach tree in this episode. In the cartoon, he steals a peach, which is the reason that they end up calling him Momo, which is not specifically mentioned in the cartoon.
Very insightful, Pauline.
Yes.
That could be like on a bar quiz, like if you're in like a...
I know. We would rock at
I don't
Avatar
know. I
trivia.
didn't catch that. You did. That's pretty impressive.
So yeah, so Momo, he is a winged lemur and is now one of our new animal companions in the series. So
Go Momo.
Okay, so let's move on to memorable quotes. I am gonna make you go first this time. What was your favorite quote for this episode?
So we've gone over 2 or 3 of my favorite quotes, so I got to move on to my last favorite quote. Okay, my favorite quote comes from Iroh, and he's speaking to Zuko, and he says, "You must use your tact, your empathy, but most importantly, you need to have sticky rice."
Okay, explain why was that your favorite?
I don't know. I just loved it because he was about to be very old. No, yeah, he was about to drop some wisdom on him, and then he's like, "Oh, there's sticky rice over there." I thought that was awesome, and why we love Uncle, because he can be so playful, but also be very insightful and genuine.
Yeah, I did love that. I love that whole scene, like that whole part actually.
So what was your most memorable quote?
So for me, it was also from Iroh. I mentioned this earlier already, but it was when he said, "Sometimes hope can be a cruel thing," which is, now that I think about it, is pretty depressing to have as my favorite quote for this episode, but it was one of the first ones to really jump out at me. Not only for what he said, but also for what was left unsaid. I almost felt like that there was more he wanted to say there to Zuko, that hope can be a cruel thing, but I can tell that in his mind there was more he had to say, but maybe that time wasn't right. The way he said it, though, you can just tell that he's coming from experience. Again, there's not a whole lot we know about Uncle Iroh at this point, but we can just assume that he has far more experience than Zuko does, and that he has reasons for everything that he says. So when he says hope can be a cruel thing, it just makes you wonder, what has he experienced and where is he pulling that from?
I think that because later Kyoshi, another one of my favorite quotes, I think they have Kyoshi say what he was going to say next, which is, "Hope does not come without a cost." I think they tied those two together.
Yeah, very depressing in a way. But yeah, that was my memorable quote. Another little peek into Iroh's mind. I have a feeling that probably most of my memorable quotes in this season will probably come from Uncle Iroh.
Okay. Do you want to get into our question of the week?
All right, so let's go over what our question of the week was. And it was, what are your thoughts on the shift in Sokka's character for this episode? So we put this question out on our social media to see if anybody had anything to say. I guess this question is more for like OG fans that have seen the cartoon, because in the original, Sokka was very sexist in this episode, and it was a central part of this episode, and showing the shift from him being sexist to the end where he is accepting of the Kyoshi warriors and accepting them as being on his level, if not better, and having newfound respect for the Kyoshi warriors, for Suki, and really just females in general, that girls can be warriors too. But that was all taken out from this episode, and they still hit some of the same beats, but they went about it in a completely different way. So that was our question. So we didn't really get any answers, but we did get a comment that I did want us to read.
So if you're listening, we do questions every week. Please help us out here.
That sounds so desperate.
Please save an airbender.
So save an air. When you answer a question of the week, you save an
You save an airbender in this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Wes, do you want to read the reply that we got over on Instagram?
All right, let's do it. This reply is from Hannah from Minnesota, and they said, "For me, I didn't have so much an issue with Sokka's character in this episode as much as how the start of his relationship with Suki was portrayed. I didn't mind that they took away the sexism, but wished that they had replaced it with a different character flaw that had to overcome when meeting and learning from Suki. I also wasn't a fan of how Suki was instantly in love with Sokka without him having to earn her respect. Her staring at him a long time with his shirt off was uncomfortable. But other than that, I enjoyed other parts of the episode and thought that the actors did a good job and loved seeing Kyoshi in the Avatar state. Thanks and love the pod."
Yay, thank you, Hannah. Thank you for
Hannah.
listening, first of all.
I do agree that they should have gave him another character flaw. And we talked about how the spark between them happened pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's because of their hormones and being 15, 16.
Yeah, I think, Hannah, you hit the nail on the head with this comment. Nothing about their attraction was necessarily wrong. For me, I wish there was just a little bit more about how that came to be. And you're right, Sokka needed something to get over. I think it was there just a little bit. It was less about how he saw Suki and more about how he was seeing himself.
Right.
Like I said,
she took him down a couple pedestals.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, he thought that he was the bee's knees when it came to fighting and being a warrior. And he got a reality check when he first fought Suki. And I think that was where Netflix was trying to go with it. But I feel like that they didn't really allude to that enough.
You can imply that it was there.
Yeah,
right?
But I do think if there was something else that Sokka was hung up on that he needed to overcome as the episode progressed, would have been a lot better. So maybe it wasn't about girls being warriors, but there needed to be something more. It's funny, I talked earlier about how I wish that they were more subtle with things like Sokka and Suki's obvious thirst for each other, but I think this could have been drawn out a little bit more. If he really was hung up over himself, I wish that they had played on that a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because then you would appreciate Sokka's character more at the end.
Yeah, and I feel like Sokka didn't do anything to earn Suki's admiration just yet.
Well,
She
got abs.
Yeah, that's not enough though. It just all happened so fast. But I mean, again, it was fine. It's nothing that ruined the episode for me, so I'm not going to knock it down too far as our cabbage rating goes just because of that.
She says she did enjoy other parts of the episode.
Oh, Hannah, yes, she did. She didn't. Wait, are you talking about me or Hannah?
Hannah.
Oh, yes, Hannah.
So we're talking about
did
Hannah.
enjoy the episode. We enjoyed the episode. So I think we're right there with you, Hannah. So we appreciate.
Thanks for listening and thanks for commenting.
Yes, we appreciate your thoughts.
You saved one airbender.
You saved one airbender with your comments. We'll see how many airbenders we can save next week. If you guys follow our Instagram or Facebook pages, you'll see us post our question of the week. And if you reply, or what some people have done in the past is send us a DM. We look at those too. Or you can even email us, avatarnationpod@gmail.com, and we'll get your responses that way too. And yeah, we'll save more airbenders that way. That is so bad. Oh, and also, if you do follow our social media pages, I mentioned this in our last podcast episode, but we are gearing up to have a giveaway soon. So you don't want to miss out on that.
What are we giving away?
I don't want to say
You don't
yet.
want to say?
I don't want to
Okay.
say yet because
It's a secret.
It's a secret for right now. So it is something Avatar related. So yeah.
Okay. Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'm excited to. This episode has made me excited to watch the rest of the episodes. Like I said before, I really feel like now we're getting to where we're taking the training wheels off, if that makes sense. And I feel like that there are definitely even better episodes up ahead, and getting to a point where hopefully we can start caring about the characters even more. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I agree. The train is on the tracks and it's building up steam.
Yes. So that.
I know we're only through 2 episodes, but for the first time, I am excited for the next episode.
Do you think we can watch it tonight?
I can say yes because they're listening to this on Tuesday. So yes, I will watch it Tuesday night.
No, we gotta watch it before that. We're gonna watch it tonight.
Yes, I am looking forward to watching it with you tonight.
Okay, shall we close out this episode?
That was me.
I know, but it didn't feel natural, so.
Okay. Shall we? All right, that's our show for today. We appreciate you for all taking the time to listen to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating because it makes a huge difference in helping others find this podcast. And if you don't want to miss out on any upcoming episodes, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get or listen to your favorite podcast. Save a Airbender.
And a winged lemur. We also encourage you guys to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and also on TikTok. That way you can join in on the conversation. And we are at Avatar Nation Pod. In fact, anytime that you're listening to us, take a screenshot on your phone or on your computer and share it to your stories and tag us. We'd love to reshare and give you a shout out. So with that said, I'm Pauline.
And I'm Wes.
And you've been listening to Avatar Nation. See you next time.
Love ya.